Welcome back to Historic Icons. Today, we're diving into the epic story of Napoleon Bonaparte, the emperor who redefined Europe. How does a man from a small island become the master of a continent? Napoleon's story is one of sheer will, genius, and ambition that literally redrew the map of the world. He wasn't just a general. He was a force of nature who took the chaos of the French Revolution and forged an empire from its flames. His journey from an obscure Corsican artillery officer to the Emperor of France is one of the most incredible tales in history. So, how did he do it? And how did it all come crashing down? Let's find out. Born Napoleon Bonaparte in Corsica in 1769, his family was minor Italian nobility. From a young age, he showed a remarkable talent for mathematics and military strategy. Sent to military school in mainland France, he was an outsider, often teased for his Corsican accent and modest background, but this only fueled his ambition. The French Revolution was the perfect storm for a man like Napoleon. The old order was collapsing, and talent, not birthright, was what mattered. As a young officer, he proved his worth at the siege of Toulon, using brilliant artillery tactics to drive out British forces. This victory got him noticed, and he quickly climbed the ranks. His Italian campaign was a masterpiece. Leading a poorly equipped army, he inspired his men with promises of glory and riches, and through a series of lightning-fast victories, he defeated the Austrians and their allies. He returned to France a national hero, but his ambition didn't stop there. He launched a campaign in Egypt, aiming to disrupt British trade routes. While the military results were mixed, he used his flair for propaganda to portray it as a triumph, bringing back scholars and discoveries that sparked a fascination with Egyptology across Europe. Back in Paris, political instability was rampant. Seizing the moment in 1799, Napoleon orchestrated a coup d'état, becoming first consul of France. In just a few short years, he had gone from an unknown officer to the most powerful man in the country. As first consul, Napoleon proved to be as brilliant a statesman as he was a general. He centralized the government, reformed the banking system by creating the Bank of France, and revitalized the economy. He understood that to secure his power, he needed to bring stability and order to a nation torn apart by revolution. His most lasting achievement from this period is undoubtedly the Napoleonic Code. This comprehensive legal framework streamlined France's confusing and contradictory laws. It enshrined principles like legal equality for all male citizens, property rights, and religious freedom. It was so revolutionary and effective that it was adopted by many other countries and still forms the basis of civil law systems around the world today. It was a monumental step in creating a modern, secular state. By 1804, Napoleon's power was absolute. He crowned himself Emperor of the French in a lavish ceremony at Notre Dame Cathedral. In a famous act of self-determination, he took the crown from the Pope's hands and placed it on his own head, symbolizing that his authority came from himself, not from God. As emperor, his military campaigns continued to astound Europe. The Grande Armée, his massive, well-trained, and fiercely loyal army, seemed invincible. His greatest victory came in 1805 at the Battle of Austerlitz, often called the Battle of the Three Emperors. Outnumbered by a combined Russian and Austrian force, Napoleon used masterful deception and tactical brilliance. He feigned weakness to lure the Allies into a trap, then smashed their center and routed their armies. It was a devastating blow to the Third Coalition and solidified his reputation as a military genius. For the next several years, he was the master of Europe, installing his relatives and loyal marshals as rulers of conquered territories. He redrew national borders, abolished the ancient Holy Roman Empire, and spread the ideas of the French Revolution, both by force and by example. But his ambition had no limits, and this would ultimately lead to his downfall. Napoleon's desire to crush his most stubborn enemy, Great Britain, led to a fatal mistake: the Continental System. This was a large-scale embargo designed to cripple the British economy by blocking its trade with Europe. But it backfired, causing widespread economic hardship and resentment across the continent. Portugal's refusal to comply led to the Peninsular War, a brutal years-long conflict in Spain that drained French resources and manpower. The Spanish engaged in relentless guerrilla warfare, a little war that the Grande Armée couldn't win. It became known as Napoleon's Spanish Ulcer, but his greatest disaster was yet to come. In 1812, angry with Russia for resuming trade with Britain, Napoleon assembled the largest European army ever seen, over 500,000 men, and invaded Russia. The Russians, however, refused to give him the decisive battle he craved. Instead, they adopted a scorched earth policy, retreating deeper and deeper into the vast country and destroying everything in their path. Napoleon captured a deserted and burning Moscow, but with no supplies and the brutal Russian winter approaching, he was forced into a catastrophic retreat. Starvation, freezing temperatures, and constant Cossack raids decimated his army. Of the more than 600,000 men who entered Russia, fewer than 100,000 made it out. The disastrous Russian campaign shattered the myth of Napoleon's invincibility. His enemies, sensing weakness, formed a new coalition against him. In 1813, at the Battle of Leipzig, also known as the Battle of Nations, he was decisively defeated by the combined forces of Austria, Prussia, Russia, and Sweden. The following year, Allied armies marched into Paris. Napoleon was forced to abdicate and was exiled to the small island of Elba in the Mediterranean. The Bourbon monarchy was restored in France. It seemed his incredible story was over, but Napoleon was never one to accept defeat. Less than a year into his exile, he escaped from Elba, landed in France, and began a legendary march to Paris. The troops sent to arrest him instead flocked to his banner, shouting "Vive l'Empereur!" He reclaimed his throne without a single shot being fired, beginning a period known as the 100 Days. The European powers, stunned by his return, quickly declared war once more. Napoleon knew he had to strike first and decisively. He marched his army into Belgium, aiming to defeat the British and Prussian armies before they could unite. This set the stage for one of history's most famous battles, Waterloo. On June 18, 1815, Napoleon's army faced the British-led Allied forces under the Duke of Wellington. It was a brutal, hard-fought battle. For hours, French forces relentlessly attacked Wellington's lines. It seemed they might break through, but Wellington's men held firm. The turning point came late in the day when the Prussian army arrived on the battlefield and smashed into Napoleon's flank. Caught between two armies, the French Imperial Guard made a last, desperate stand but was ultimately broken. The Grand Army collapsed into a rout. Napoleon's last gamble had failed. This time, his enemies took no chances. Napoleon was exiled to St. Helena, a remote, windswept volcanic island in the South Atlantic, thousands of miles from Europe. Under constant British guard, he spent his final years dictating his memoirs, crafting the legend that would outlive him. He died in 1821 at the age of 51. So, what is Napoleon's legacy? It's complex and contradictory. He was a dictator who plunged Europe into years of war, causing millions of deaths. Yet, he was also a modernizer who swept away feudalism, championed legal equality, and spread liberal ideas across the continent. He inspired intense nationalism, not just in France, but also in the countries that rose up to fight him, like Spain and Germany. His legal and administrative reforms had a lasting impact on governance worldwide. Napoleon Bonaparte was a man of immense talent and even greater ambition. He was a revolutionary, a conqueror, and a lawgiver who, for a brief, brilliant moment, held the destiny of Europe in his hands, leaving a mark on history that can still be felt today. Thank you so much for joining us on Historic Icons. What do you think is Napoleon's most important legacy? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss another episode. We'll see you next time.